We are at McDaniel College, and it is April 20th, 2011. This is Lauren Elchek, and I'm interviewing Mr. Ben Dean. So, Mr. Dean, can you tell me where and when you were born?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, April 23rd, 1943.
Okay. And what was it like growing up in Baltimore?
It was pretty neat. I grew up in the Pikesville area and the Cockeysville, Timonium, Towson area for high school. And then Pikesville was a lot of fun. We were about a mile from the elementary school, and I got to walk each day at 6 years old through a cemetery and a woods and down an urban street, Reisterstown. Nobody ever thought anything of that.
How far was the walk?
It was a little over a mile.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty neat.
Yeah, I can imagine. Through all the weather and everything?
Oh, yeah. I don't recall we ever got a ride.
So if we had some kind of snowstorm, you were going through that?
I think we walked, too. I don't remember them closing school for snow.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't think they stopped for much of anything, and my parents would cut us loose on the weekend, and we'd be gone for half the day or the whole day, and they didn't know where we were, and sometimes we didn't know where we were.
So what kind of things?
Back then, it never seemed to make a whole lot of difference to anybody.
Right. So what kind of things did you do for fun when you were away from home in school?
Away from home in school?
And school. Away from home and school.
Oh, away from home and school. Well, I had family down in the mountains, and so we would always go down to the mountains, and I enjoyed playing in the mountains and in the lakes and that sort of thing, and doing family things there. Some of my family had farms down there, and I would go down for the summer and help on the farm and milk cows and do all that kind of stuff. And milk cows the old-fashioned way, where you had to take a board and put it up there and tie the tail to it so it wouldn't knock the bucket over. And so all the old-fashioned ways of doing stuff, that's what we did. That was fun.
Very good. So what about as a teenager? You were telling me about going to Orioles games.
Yeah, as a teenager, growing up there, I went down to Towson. And the interesting thing about the school system then was we didn't have any football. So we just played lacrosse and soccer, and I wrestled and I ran cross country and did a lot of that kind of stuff. But we didn't have a football program. I don't know why, but that didn't come until later. And going to the Oriole games, we still had a trolley system going down the middle of York Road. So we would leave. The high school wasn't that far from York Road, and we'd leave and walk out to York Road and get on a trolley and go down to the games. We waited till school was over.
Oh, that's good. Not cutting school to go to games.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was kind of, not much of that around anymore.
No, there's not. We definitely don't have trolleys here in Carroll County.
Actually, I think it'd be a big draw.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like the Metro, but a little different. So did you have any experiences with diversity while you were in school or growing up?
Yeah, I think we had two black students in my high school, and the way the names came out, I sat by one of them in homeroom, and I don't remember thinking much of anything of it. I remember that there weren't many there.
Okay. Do you remember other people's attitudes towards the diversity, or?
Well, it wasn't an integrated system to any great extent.
Okay.
So there wasn't much of an issue. You know, it was getting ready to be integrated, and the kids living in our area could come there in the 50s. So but it hadn't. The neighborhood where I was, there wasn't much diversity.
Has that changed at all?
In the Baltimore area, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore County has changed significantly, but so there's a lot more diversity. But back then, there wasn't much.
Right.
So there weren't any issues. When I got into the service, it was pretty neat because all the people that were my leaders were black males who I looked up to because they knew more than the rest of us. They were in charge. They treated us better than the white NCOs. And so I had a really good experience getting started as a young man. And the military was way ahead in diversity. So that was my first real experience, because there wasn't much in the neighborhoods and where I was.
Right. So you were in the Army then?
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to join the Army?
Lack of anything else to do with that.
Did you join when you were 18 or?
17. I had to have a
17,
waiver to go in.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't do badly. I wound up as a colonel, but I wasn't one at that point.
So what are some more of your successes in the Army, or do you have any good stories?
We were in some combat operations as part of a counter-guerrilla warfare effort to keep North Koreans from coming down and assassinating the president of South Korea. And so that was a pretty interesting experience.
Yeah, sounds like
Gave me plenty of exposure to what combat's all about. I'm not saying that we went out actually looking for what we were supposed to do, but we found it. So
all right.
that was, I grew up fast then.
Yeah.
I at times thought maybe I should have done something else.
So when exactly did you move to Carroll County?
We moved in about 74.
Okay. Was there a specific reason for Carroll County, or?
Yes, we were renting in the Woodlawn area of Baltimore County, and we couldn't afford the homes in the Randallstown, Woodlawn area. And we could afford a home out in Mount Airy. So we moved to Mount Airy because it was less expensive to live in Carroll County than it was in the Baltimore area or Washington area.
And has that changed?
Yeah, it's completely reversed.
What kind of things have you noticed have changed environmentally wise, how rural Carroll County is?
Well, Carroll County is still a bedroom community, so that way that's not a whole lot of change. It's really kind of nice that it's still about the same way it was, but things like services and shopping have changed tremendously. We lived, as I mentioned, Mount Airy, where our focus was more on Frederick, and we worked in the Baltimore area, so we would shop in Baltimore or Frederick, but we didn't think much of coming to Westminster. You didn't have any of the big box stores or anything of that nature, so your focus was more out of the county. Now there's more shopping opportunity, and I think people kind of stay put in Carroll for a lot of the basic things that they go shopping for. Also, there's a huge difference in medical services. Back in the 70s, you really didn't want to get sick and have to come up here to Westminster to the Carroll County Hospital. Carroll County General Hospital didn't have the greatest reputation for people actually doing well after surgeries and that sort of thing. That has changed, and I have great respect for what they do now. And we've used their services, and so that's a huge difference there. So I see that as a big improvement.
Right, definitely. Medical care is important.
Yes.
What about in politics? Have you noticed anything different in politics in regards to Carroll County?
I'm what Carroll County calls unaffiliated. They don't have anything called independent. And I find that necessary because I'm not real pleased with either party looking out for the citizens of America uppermost. They seem to all be bought and paid for. So, having gone out on a limb with that comment, I really overall am pretty happy with the way Carroll County has gone from a political standpoint. They somehow have seemed to survive and done the right things over the years, We didn't get hit as hard with the housing boom because Carroll County government decided, because of what the people wanted, that we shouldn't build houses if we didn't have the services to support it. So while all around us was booming, Carroll County was not. It didn't overbuild. It didn't bring in a lot of folks that are now way over their heads with upside down mortgages and things. So that didn't really occur to the same extent it did elsewhere. They did well with their police force. I'm not real happy with the change from the state troopers to a sheriff's department and a local police force, because I think the state police, if you live down in an area like Eldersburg, where I live, or Mount Airy, you're right on the edge of a lot of jurisdictions. Sometimes your crime moves back and forth without thinking. That, criminals don't care which jurisdiction they're in. The state troopers could always pursue them. And so you've got a very low crime rate in the southern part of Carroll than you might otherwise. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going to happen when we move over and don't have state police and have the sheriff's department, but I didn't like that part of the politics. I didn't like where the political parties came out on that. But generally, I think Carroll has been a responsible county in terms of its politics. And when we first moved here, we had to get used to the fact that you didn't pay much in taxes and you got nothing in services. So I guess it kind of balanced out. I mean, there wasn't any garbage collection or anything. It seemed like you had to hire somebody to do everything. You did it yourself.
Right.
So that wasn't too bad. I got used to that. I wasn't used to it initially, but then I said, well, on the other hand, I'm not paying much in the way of taxes either.
So how's that changed now?
I think our tax rates are comparable to all the surrounding jurisdictions. They're right up near the cap, so I think we pay plenty.
Okay. What about changes in the roads of Carroll County, like in regards to more roads, building?
There are pros and cons of our lack of doing much of anything in the way of roads. When we moved 22 years ago, we moved from Mount Airy to Eldersburg, and one of the things that was attractive was that the realtor told us that they were getting ready to take Route 32 and expand it to 4 lanes from Eldersburg down to Route 70. And so, of course, 22 years later, it's not even in the plans anywhere. I think maybe it'll be there in 15, 20 years or something. So it's like you've got these little areas. Eldersburg has this huge highway through the center of it, so you can get from one end of Eldersburg to the other pretty easy, but trying to get out or get in, it's all 2-lane roads. So that makes it a bit of a bottleneck. On the other hand, you don't have massive development or much of anything else because it's so inconvenient to come in. Mm-hmm. It's not really that great. The only good route we have coming into Carroll County is Route 70 coming past Mount Airy and Northwest Expressway coming up here to leading into Westminster. Other than that, it's all 2-lane roads. So that can be down where I live. I live in a little community that's a couple miles from the center of Eldersburg, and in the evenings, the traffic where a road coming into our area from Liberty Road is the traffic backs up from there almost the entire 2 miles to the center of Eldersburg with people coming home. So we're still a bedroom community, but the roads aren't even close to handling the kind of traffic we have around here. So it'll keep us rural. It'll keep us a bedroom community, so you don't have to worry about any big businesses locating here with that kind of road system.
What was the traffic like back then? Was it as backed up, or?
When I first came to Mount Airy, there wasn't any traffic at all. they were still finishing Route 70. They hadn't even built all the bridges on Route 70 on the interstate. So, you know, it was a pretty easy commute. So that was, I don't see that there's been, on the road systems, I mean, can you tell me where you know of a brand new road that's been put in? I think they're putting in some around Hampstead.
They just did the circle, the bypass.
They did a bypass.
They did a bypass.
I think that is the only thing they've done in Carroll County since 1974 when I moved here.
Interesting. And the bypass was put in, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's a long time. With
Do you know of anything else? I don't know of any other roads.
No.
No. Not even widened. They don't widen them. They don't build new ones. They don't do anything. They just kind of leave it the way it is. I don't know whether it's there. I would say it's partly state politics because you've got a Republican county in the middle of a Democratic state. So you don't have a whole lot of priority for funding for anything. So I think we kind of get short shrift on that.
And has it always been a Republican county, or has that changed at all?
Now, it was even further to the right than Republican when I first got here.
Oh, wow.
So moving towards Republican has been a moderation of their politics. When I first moved here, there were stories of the Ku Klux Klan still holding rallies in Gamber, not far from where I live now, with cross burnings and all that kind of thing. So this was kind of a way out place at one point in certain areas. And I think there's no remnant of that anywhere at this point, but that was back in the 60s and 70s. That wasn't that long ago.
Right.
That was still occurring. So we've come a long way from there, and I think the Republicans are a big improvement over whatever they were back in the 50s and 60s.
So you just heard stories about that kind of thing with the Ku Klux Klan, or did you ever see anything?
No, I had no personal experience with any of it.
That would be interesting, I think.
Well, not something I'd be interested in.
Well, not terrible, but you know. You told me about one of your private roads in your neighborhood and a little speed bump that you put in. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, in Mount Airy, I was the president of a community association, and I got tired of people roaring through the community because we all had small children, and I couldn't get the mayor to do anything, so I decided on my own to put in speed bumps across public roads. And it turns out that's probably not the best thing to do. So somehow or another that got to the major networks in Baltimore, and Vicki Mabry, who became a TV star later, came out to interview me to find out about these speed bumps. I don't know how word got, somebody called, I guess. So when I did that, then the mayor came. She found out that the local TV station was going to be there. And so the mayor and I made the evening news as we debated whether the speed bump should come out. So, but I came out ahead of where we were with no speed bumps because all they made me do was lower them a little bit so you could get fire trucks through.
Oh, see?
Which I thought was good for us to be able to have fire trucks coming in.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good not doing that, but I did learn. I don't know what I learned because what I did was effective. So
exactly, you won in the
end.
end.
I didn't exactly learn that you don't want to put speed bumps in the middle of public roads. But
what year was this?
Well, sometime in the late 70s, I guess it was.
And are those speed bumps still there?
Yeah, they're still there.
Oh, so
They're worn down a little, but they're still there.
Your mark on history right there in those speed
Right,
bumps, right?
We made history right there.
Yeah.
Right there in Mount Airy.
So, about the people in Carroll County, have you seen any changes in diversity or anything in general about the changes of people?
That's not a whole lot of change that I've seen. I don't know whether it's still not as an attractive place for diversity. I don't really sense any kind of um, discrimination or anything else. It just seems like Carroll County just doesn't have that much going on in terms of job opportunities. Housing is very expensive. It's not something that young people are going to be attracted to. There's not a whole lot that attracts a population to change much, so there's not much opportunity for diversity or any other kind of changes. In my neighborhood, I'm the newest person right around where I live. I've been there 22 years and everybody else has been there 30. So,
wow.
You know, people just don't, they come in and they homestead and they just stay there. It doesn't seem to be the same kind of rapid turnover. Now, I don't know what the real statistics are, and I might just be sampling from my own neighborhood. We've got a couple hundred homes in our little area down there, and there isn't that much change. People come in, but the people that come in commute down to Fort Meade or to Washington area somewhere, or sometimes to Baltimore. Mostly we're very much oriented towards Washington. We were, when we moved out there, we found out that the whole orientation was towards Washington, and that has not decreased. That seems to actually have increased. So that rather than focusing in on the Baltimore area, it all seems to be the Washington Post and the whole Washington area.
Right.
Seems to be where you go.
Okay.
But I think there's a tremendous amount to, I mean, Carroll County is really an attractive place with all the history and the farm museums here and all that sort of thing. So that I've seen a big improvement in too, in making those available to everybody and keeping that up. And so I think Carroll County has spent wisely and put the resources in nicely.
Good.
They've got a little airport.
What about in regards to technology? How has that changed?
If there was more housing, this would be a tremendous draw, because with the technology, you don't have to go for those long commutes all the time. So a lot of people would work 2-3 days a week at home, no matter what kind of jobs they have, unless they're factory or construction or something. But a lot of the kind of jobs we have now, people telecommute. So I think Carroll County is a great place to stay home and work, and my neighbors, a number of them do that. And it's great for raising kids and everything else. You know, moms can be around, and so I see a huge difference in technology. We wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Some time ago, we didn't have Carroll County cable system doing what it does to allow us to watch all the council meetings of each of the little incorporated towns and the Carroll County government itself, a lot of the hearings and things like that. So if you don't know what's going on in Carroll County, you're just not trying. So I like that. The technology is really great. Mm-hmm. It helped me find this. So I'm really, I think that's all been, I don't see any negatives of that for Carroll County at all. Okay. I think it'll continue to contribute to the quality of life here. Carroll County is, I think, a pretty impressive, the government's pretty impressive in their own use of technology and what I've seen there. So, but there have been huge differences, and again, the cable system, I think, is the biggest impact on all of us.
Okay. So is there anything that's changed in the past 40 years in Carroll County that you don't like, besides the police force and how that's gone?
No. Almost all of it's been things I did like. My housing value didn't collapse because it didn't bubble out of sight and create a whole lot of people flipping homes and things. So the things that we did the last 4 years, I think, were really foresighted. I mean, they really made a difference. The county is one of the more solid entities. We've got award-winning schools. Our school system is one of the tops in the nation. And so that's good. That's a real attractive thing. I don't really see, no, other than the police force. I think they probably made a mistake there, and they're going to wish they hadn't done that. Trying to do a local police force is one of the trickiest things to pull off, to keep it professional. Mm-hmm. You know, when you had the state police, they go through the state police academy, which I worked with and had a lot of folks who were in the state troopers working for me in various jobs I held, and they were real professionals. And that state police academy, you're going to know what you're doing when you get out of that. They've got really good standards, and they have to be able to work anywhere with any kind of population all over the state, and to do a great job of that. And we're going to miss that professionalism and being keyed in. There are no jurisdictional disputes. When you had all those state troopers around, you didn't worry about, I'm responsible now, or you got that jurisdictional thing. That is not going to help in trying to keep crime down. So I'm concerned. I think you hit that's been a hot button for me. Mm-hmm. I think the whole debate and everything was skewed on that. I think it was power for power's sake. And I'm not real happy with the guy that forced this on us. It was an ex-state trooper who took over the sheriff's department and improved that and did a lot. But then he started lobbying for that to be the only police force, and that I think was will wind up having been a disservice. And I'm probably a minority opinion on that, but we'll see where that goes. I hope I'm wrong, because I don't intend to leave. So, I'm not looking for that to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'll work hard to make sure the sheriff's department works too. But
okay. Well, do you have any more interesting stories that you wanted to share about Carroll County or growing up, or?
Well, Hoffman's ice cream has been a tradition, and that's one of the things that never changed. When we first came here, there was Hoffman's ice cream. So my two daughters remember that fondly. We always stopped at Hoffman's ice cream, and I don't see any change in that whatsoever, although now I dance with the Hoffmans or a part of the family, and so that's a really nice tradition. I don't think there was anything else that...
You said you dance with them. What kind of dance do you do?
More and more.
Is this the ballroom?
It's almost gotten to what I don't do anymore. It's a more limited amount of dancing. So I do a lot of, I can do ballroom, swing, and Latin just enough to be dangerous.
When did you start dancing?
Last winter.
Oh, okay, so this is recent.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, it's been a very good experience. You meet a lot of people, and in the dance studio where I go, I guess we can mention the name, or Dancing Made Easy. You get a lot of people in from around the community, mm-hmm. So you get to know a lot of people who live right here in Westminster, and people from around, and it's a very nice group of people. So I've really enjoyed the social part of it as well as the dancing part of it. It's been a really nice experience.
Okay. So. Well, one last question. Do you have any advice for people around my age?
Yeah, be open and flexible and pursue your education, because that's going to make or break any job opportunities. Make sure that you acquire a way to make learning a lifelong experience and a lifelong skill, just like other things are lifelong skills. Never stop. Learn everything about everything that you can, and you'll never be bored. Anybody who tells me they're bored, I say you're just not trying. The more you learn about something, the less bored you are about it, and the more people you can talk with, and the more pleasant experiences you can have. And there's no excuse for anybody ever being bored, at least not more than once. Maybe you'll get in some place where you completely don't know anything about it. So just be flexible in your job opportunities, be ready to move when you need to move into a field when you see that one's dying off, and because that's the way it's going to be for the rest of the time. It's hard to know what opportunities we're going to have 25, 30 years from now, so be prepared not to do what they did. In much of my career, people went to work someplace and they worked there for their whole lives, even small businesses. And there's no feeling that that's going to continue, but I think for people that are really aggressive and have a lot of self-initiative and that sort of thing, and have taken the time to educate themselves well, and who can do social networking and know how to interact with people. I mean, it's all people. If you can't get along with people, you're not going to make it anywhere. So people skills are very important along with the knowledge. Knowledge won't help you much if you don't have any people skills, so you got to go, you got to do both of it. But I think you have a bright future. I'm very positive and upbeat, and nothing really ever gets me down. I have a kind of indomitable spirit that has served me well throughout my life. So, and I think all of you should have the same. There's nothing I see coming down the road that would bother me a whole lot about if you pursue your goals and aspirations and are flexible on what they are, you're going to reach them. And there was a quote in a movie I saw the other night that said, happiness is the act of working towards your goals, not reaching them. I thought that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was...
what movie was that?
Before Sunset.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that. But it was a pretty neat movie, and I thought, well, that's interesting, that happiness is working towards the goals, not reaching them.
That is interesting.
When you reach them, they're never quite what you wanted. I guess is a part of what that was. But I've always enjoyed working towards the goals. It's been just like the dancing thing. I've enjoyed learning and working towards becoming a good dancer as much as, of course, in that way, my dance instructor Jessica tells me that you never get good enough to say you never quite reach it. There's always more to learn. And that's true of life. There's always more to learn, more to do. Uh-huh. And I really do believe that you can't just plateau out and stay there, because you're either moving ahead or you're moving backwards. So you never, it's not possible to just stay where you are. You got to always be moving forward in some way, however you define that.
Okay, well, I think that's great advice to leave off on. I thank you so much again for
No, not at all.
doing this interview.